I think you'd be surprised just how far a person is willing to go in order to get some respect. And it can be so far that there's no going back, for them and for those around them. That person was me, at the young age of 17. You see, once I really started developing my social personality in middle school, it became pretty clear to everyone that I was the shy type. Somebody who liked to lay low and blend in, rather than stand out. You might think that that's okay, and it really is, but not so much for boys, at least boys at my school. If you didn't show that you had guts, they were onto you, and I mean like a pack of hungry wolves. And while they never beat me up, they did insult me a lot and gave me a paranoia that has never left me. I strongly believe that insults can and will hurt more than physical torment, and it certainly left its mark. Anyways, once I started my years in high school, I knew I had to change, and that this was my chance to be known for being strong, courageous, and worthy of being respected. No person would ever dream of bullying me anymore. I cut my hair to look cooler, wore tougher looking clothing, and even tried to train myself using YouTube videos on how to become mentally stronger. I know my parents must have found my sudden change strange because they never knew anything about my being bullied. And I didn't think they needed to know anyways. I was going to solve this problem on my own and prove to everyone that I wasn't going to be messed with anymore. But life doesn't work wonders like that, and it's TV's fault for always making the impossible seem possible. I went into high school and got bullied regardless, and by new people. They made fun of how I tried to look like something I wasn't, and I found out the horrific truth that you can never hide what's really inside. I just was what I was, and there wasn't actually a problem with it. It was the rude people that were the problem. But I didn't understand that then and got really fed up. So fed up that I said something really stupid to them during lunch. The conversation went something like this. A group of tall, condescending guys were calling me names not suitable for children, and one of them told me that I was weak for not saying anything back. I told them angrily that I wasn't weak, and they started laughing rudely. That only got me more fired up. I told them that they were the ones who were weak, along with some other comments that immediately got their attention, and I could see their faces turning a dark red. I didn't even think that was even possible for a human to do. Then again, I've long doubted they were human. The leader of the guys put his hands up to signal for his friends and himself to calm down, and surprisingly they did. Then, he slowly walked to me, standing uncomfortably close to my face, and through gritted teeth, told me, since I thought I was such a tough guy, that I should put my money where my mouth is and prove it. Being a quick thinker, I thought of the perfect plan. My parents were going to be going out tonight, and once they were gone, I would invite the guys over to play the midnight game. A game I was told by my parents' friends when I was younger. Knowing that it was just a lame thing told to spook kids, I would try to scare them myself, while making it seem like I was being brave and cool throughout the whole game. With them acting so scared, they'd realize that I was tougher than them, and I'd get non-stop respect from not just them, but maybe even the whole school. Word spreads faster than you can blink in high school, and you'd better remember that. That was my plan, and while it might not have been perfect, I'd say, in a way, it got the job done. But I'm not sure you'll agree after hearing what happened. Eager to prove me wrong, they all agreed to come over around 11 p.m. when it was dark, which was perfect because the game works best in the dark anyways. I'll be honest, I never felt more excited in my whole life. I was going to scare the life out of them. As soon as the lights went out, I would sneak up on them and get revenge. My parents left out and never told me I couldn't have friends over because they knew I had no friends at all, meaning I technically wasn't breaking any rules. I got out an old Halloween mask of a creepy bloody goblin that could easily scare the bravest of people, and an oversized black coat that would hide the rest of my body. With it being dark, I was sure that all they would see was a horrific creature that looked ready to attack. In my pocket, I kept a plastic toy knife that looked awfully realistic to use to scare them as well. Finally, darkness fell over the sky, and I waited for them to come. I heard the doorbell ring and welcomed them in. They looked mischievous and full of themselves, which was perfect. We gathered in a circle in the living room, sitting on the floor, and it took a while for them to finally shut up. In order to prove just how not weak I am and just how weak you guys are, we're going to play the midnight game. You guys know how to play? I asked. Most of the guys said yeah, but one of them shook their heads with a grin, asking me to explain it. Well, first we get out a piece of paper, I said. I'd already placed one on one of the couches, and I picked it up and sat back down in the group. In the actual ritual, you'd use your own blood to write your name, but we don't. Before I could finish talking, the leader of the guys took a short but really sharp knife. I backed away so quickly I didn't expect it. I yelled at the guy what he thought he was doing, and he looked at me like I was the one who was crazy. He said that all of us would be writing our names in blood, just like the ritual went, and stabbed himself in the finger. You could see the pain on his face, clear as day, and although it took a bit, he wrote his name in small letters on the paper. He then passed the knife around to the others, and they did the same, except one who said that he didn't actually want to do it. The leader called him a chicken and the guy left in a rush. Honestly, it was pretty disturbing to see them all do it, and I was surprised to see that one of the guys was prepared and had brought bandages for them to use. Well, the leader said, we're all here to prove how tough we are. What about you? That's when things got real. It wasn't just gonna be a joke. They really wanted to go through with this. I tentatively grabbed the knife, sitting back in my spot. My hands shook with a ferocity I'd never known before. I told myself it'd be okay, but my body knew that it was not. Come on, I thought to myself. This is what it takes to earn respect, to be a brave person. If you can't do this, you'll be known as a weakling forever. I decided that I might not feel the pain as much if I did it quickly, so I stabbed my hand as quick as I could, but I was absolutely wrong. In fact, the pain might have been stronger because I did it fast. For the next 10 seconds, I gripped my hand in intense pain. I watched as blood dripped like rain from my hand and onto the floor. Someone passed the paper my way so I could write my name quickly. Slowly, I lowered my hand towards the paper and tried my best to write my name without wincing too much. My hand started throbbing uncontrollably, but at least somebody gave me a bandage so that I could heal. Everybody in the room took a few minutes to look at the paper, at what we'd done. I had initially planned for us to just use a pencil to write our names, but it seemed like peer pressure had other plans, an unfortunate weakness of mine. The paper was stained with speckles of dark red, and our names dripped onto each other a little bit. It was a horrid sight, to say the least. You'd think we were trying to summon a demon or something. It was 11:50 when we finally finished writing our names in blood. In the ritual, after placing the paper in front of a closed door and lighting a candle, you're supposed to knock 21 times and then once more at exactly 12 a.m. No minute more, no minute less. I figured the basement door would be the scariest option, and because I knew that the ritual wasn't actually real, I wasn't feeling afraid or anything like that. To me, in that moment, the scariest thing would be us actually writing our names in blood. The rest would just be a prank I'd play on them. But you're hearing this story of mine because you know that's not what would happen. And so, me and the other guys stepped down the stairs and to the basement door, which was normally always locked, and I placed the paper on the floor in front of it. One of the guys brung along the candle and set it across from the paper. I asked who wanted to be the one to do the knocking, but no one offered, not even the leader. You're the one who wanted to prove himself the most. You do it, the leader finally spoke. I nervously nodded my head and lit the candle. The guys backed away from me, standing on the stairs as I started knocking. And I'm telling you, with every knock I did, I could feel the room getting colder. Suddenly, I could feel the house's atmosphere getting more and more unsafe, and I'm pretty sure the others could feel it too. When I first started knocking, they were snickering and giggling. When I was about to stop, they were dead quiet. And if I never turned around, I would have thought I was alone. Before I did the 20-second knock, I checked my watch. It was a minute before midnight. I watched it closely, my arm ready to deliver the final knock as soon as it turned 12. But the clock didn't change. I counted 60 seconds over and over again, but the clock remained the same. Somebody behind me asked if it had turned 12 yet, and I told them that my watch was acting weird and wasn't working. The leader walked up to the basement door and checked his watch, which was saying the same thing as mine. The others that had watches checked theirs, and it was all the same thing. It was like all of time stopped. Well, it's probably already past 12, so you might as well knock now, someone said. I moved my hand forward, but my hand stopped right before it could touch the door. Every hair on my body stood up on its end. The closer my hand was to the door, the more out of breath I was feeling. It was then that I realized. You guys, I need to tell you something, I whispered carefully. Everyone was silent. No matter what, no one can knock one more time on this door. But all the guys started complaining instantly, calling me a scared cat and saying that they were just getting into it, that they hadn't had this much fun in a long time. The only guy who seemed like he agreed with me was the leader. But when his friends cheered him on to make the last knock, he took a nervous laugh and knocked once, the 20-second knock. In a split second, I looked at my watch, and what I saw terrified me. The time on the watch, on all of our watches, was 000. The lights throughout my whole house flickered off, the candle being the only light available to us. But then some unseen force blew out the candle, and on the other side of the door, something kept knocking a bunch of times, each knock louder than the last. It didn't take me long to figure it out. Hide! Before the Midnight Man is done knocking 22 times! You'd think they wouldn't believe me, but they bolted off in an instant despite it being so dark. I followed behind and ran to somewhere slightly close by, one of my bathrooms. I shut the bathroom door and entered the closet, closing it behind me. I checked my watch and it had turned off, which meant I couldn't see a thing. I went through my memory trying to remember what happens next in the game. If my memory is correct, the door opens and the Midnight Man tries to get you while you're wandering around the dark house. Every now and then you have to move or else he'll automatically find you, and the goal is to not be caught by him and to relight the candle before 3:33 a.m. or else something bad would happen. I think that he catches you if you don't. As I stood there in the dark, I knew that this wasn't a game anymore and that I needed to relight that candle as soon as possible. But the matches used to light the candle were with one of the guys, and they were the one who didn't even know how the game worked. This was really bad, because it meant that they most likely didn't know that they were supposed to relight the candle, or that they had to avoid the Midnight Man at all costs. Bang! I heard the last knock, and the basement door creaked open slowly, most likely by itself. And I'm telling you, if there's ever a moment when you feel life-threatening fear, it's at that very moment when you realize that there's no one coming to save you, and that you were the one who put yourself in that situation in the first place. I held my breath and tried to say stiller than humanly possible, For the most part, it was quiet, way too quiet. I stayed in the closet for what I'd estimate to be half an hour and knew that I had to move to a new location. I just couldn't risk the Midnight Man finding me. I don't think I've ever moved more quietly in my life. I opened the closet door, stopped to listen, and was about to open the bathroom door when I suddenly heard somewhat silent footsteps. I could tell someone or something was coming down the hallway, and even though it was mostly quiet, because the whole house was dead silent, it was loud, if that makes sense. Maybe it was the anxiety, but I felt that it was not human. As the footsteps approached, I slowly backed away and inched my hand towards the closet door so that I could hide back inside. The footsteps approached the bathroom door and they stopped. I was terrified out of my mind. I held my breath and didn't move an inch. Even though I couldn't see very well, somehow I saw the bathroom doorknob slowly turning, so I raced to the door and pushed my body weight against it. Some otherworldly force pushed back against the door and seemed to get more and more powerful. I struggled as the door slowly opened more and more until it was open enough for a person to stick their hand through. Just as I was about to be shoved away by the strength of the door, the Midnight Man stopped pushing against it and I slammed the door shut. Panting and out of breath, I leaned against it and tried to regain my composure. The Midnight Man had left, for better or for worse, and I had just narrowly survived. Somewhere in the house I heard someone yelling for their life, and I recognized it as the person with the matches. I knew I didn't want to leave the safety of the bathroom, but this game needed to end. I creaked open the bathroom door and leapt out into the infinite abyss that was my house. For what felt like hours, I wandered through the hallways with fear of what could be waiting for me. It was just me, creeping stealthily through the house that I couldn't recognize anymore, and I dared not think of what might have happened to some of the guys. After wandering some more, I realized that I had made it to the kitchen. My feet could feel shiny objects littering the floor, and I could tell that someone in a panic must have made some utensils fall. I needed to be careful not to step on knives or anything sharp. As I stood there in the kitchen, a strong hand gripped around my neck and I twisted my body in surprise. Holding a lighter with a small flickering flame, the leader of the guys used it to determine who I was and whether I was friend or foe. Although the light was small, it chased away most of the darkness in the kitchen, and I found it interesting how my eyes were adjusting to this new brightness. I looked at the guy and noticed claw marks around his face and neck. His expression showed a mixture of fear and hardship, and I'm sure that his encounter with the Midnight Man had to have been horrifying. I was so lucky it didn't try harder to get me. "What happened?" I asked. "No time. I remember the thing got some of the others. I ran, remembered I had a lighter. How do we stop the game?" The way his eyes looked in the light was kinda dark, which sounds funny, I know. Before I could answer, we both heard a door slam open and footsteps slowly walking around. We both dropped to the floor, hiding behind a counter, none of us making a peep. "All we gotta do is relight that candle before 3:33 a.m., I whispered. The footsteps seemed like they were getting closer, so I told him to close the lighter. The guy leaned back and must have scooted into a utensil or something, because it made a loud scraping sound as it slid against the floor. The footsteps stomped loud and fast, and the Midnight Man came right to the entrance of the kitchen before stopping. None of us moved. As it walked towards the right of the kitchen, I motioned for us to move to the left, slowly. It's really hard to do when there's dishes randomly scattered across the kitchen floor. Somehow, we managed to crawl out of the kitchen. We got up and started making our way to the basement. "We gotta risk it and run. It'll get us at this rate," the guy said. I agreed, and we ran as fast as we could. But as the guy was running, he fell over and yelled to me that the Midnight Man grabbed his leg and was trying to drag him away. I reached out to grab him, but he told me there was no time and slid the lighter towards my direction. I grabbed it and ran to the basement. I tried to spark a flame with the lighter, but it wasn't working, and I could feel the Midnight Man coming. It was horrible timing. I turned and saw the Midnight Man at the top of the stairs, a dark silhouette with an indescribably creepy face. You just had to be there to see how disturbing it was. It let out a silent scream, which didn't seem possible, and as it lunged toward me, the lighter finally worked and I turned my back to light the candle. The lights in the house flickered back on and the Midnight Man vanished. I felt this internal happiness, the likes of which I'd never experienced before. I went into the living room and the other guys joined me, and I gotta say, they looked out of their minds. After that moment, we all were. But most of all, we were just glad it was over. "You did it! Thank goodness," one of them said. One after another, they all started handing out praises to me, and I felt so proud of myself. But I was the one who started it all, so I didn't feel too proud. "How did you know how to end it?" they asked. I told them that the goal was to relight the candle before 3:33 a.m., which is exactly what I did. "But you didn't," someone said. I didn't get what they meant, so I checked my watch. It said 3:36 a.m. I gulped and then realized something. Wait, how did you know that it was me who relit the candle? I backed away and prepared for the worst as they all stared blankly at me. Hope you enjoyed that story, and I'll see you in the next one. See you on the flip side.